If you'll recall back 1 or 2 years ago, we embarked on a project with the Poseidon X, to see how much weight we could shed off of it with the spare parts that I had sitting around the shed, and then later buying some Ultegra parts for an absolute steal of a deal. And then in my opinion, maybe getting a little too distracted by the numbers on a scale and forgetting that the thing has to ride half decent. And if I'm honest, all of the decisions that I made with it to make the number on the scale come down ultimately kind of ended up being the undoing and the demise of the feeling that this bike had that I loved. I took away the riding characteristics that I liked just so that we could say we saved some weight. Today, I kind of want to fix that. I want this thing to be back into the rotation of bikes that I'll grab and take out for rides all the time, because right now it looks really cool, but it just sits in the basement overshadowed by the Redwood and the other bikes that live in the shed that are at any sort of reaching distance. So what's the first thing I think we need to address? Well, I think opting for this Pro Vibe stem, while it looks really cool, it's really light, was the wrong choice. The fit on it is completely incorrect. It's 110 mils long, which may have been fine if we didn't put these Shimano Ultegra R8000 levers on, but these are so long, and this is longer than anything I've ever had on this thing, that it just became a road bike. I just feel a little bit too much weight over the front wheel, and I just kind of find myself not wanting to ride it that way. And it's unfortunate because here it is sitting here with these 45 mil tires on it, but it's just a straight up road bike. It's a big tire road bike. I've got road bikes for road riding, and if I want to go on dirt, I want a bike that's going to handle it a little better. So that's the first thing I want to fix. Now, what I have to choose from for stems is 3 different 100 millimeter long stems. 10 millimeters is not going to be enough of a difference. And I've got this, the 60 millimeter long stem that came off of my trail bike to make way for the 35 millimeter that's on there now. Believe it or not, I'm gonna put this on. It might look a little darky, but I think the fit will be worth it. The initial fit that we have today is pretty laid out when you're in the hoods. To feel comfortable enough to like want to hop something or go down something, my hands kind of want to be here, but of course I can't exactly reach brakes that way, so then boom, I'm fairly nose heavy again. So that's a fairly large distance. Hard to say if 50 millimeters is even going to make it up, but we're about to find out. You know what? I don't hate it looking at it. There's still lots of length with the levers, so it still looks fairly long. Though it doesn't look nearly as killer as it did with the 110 stem on it, but looks versus riding, there's a fine line there. That's way better. I deal with having my hands here, navigate through everything, hop, whatever. Good move. If I was to get a 0 setback seat post, I could probably go 10 or 20 mils longer on the stem, get that look back a little bit, but for now, that's gonna be the proper fit for going out and being a bit of a hooligan on this thing. Now, the next thing to fix. Now this next problem, this is going to solve 2 problems in one, and it is the chain set. Now the chainstays on the X are fairly wide for clearance of tire, and so that you can swap between a quick release rear end and, if you buy the adapters, bolt in a through axle rear end. These 165 millimeter long Shimano 105s have kind of been the best for not hitting too often, but when you're putting a lot of power down and you're trying to climb something, you definitely do feel them hit, you do feel it knock, and that's annoying. Depending on how long you've followed me and the X, I've ran into that with a few different cranksets, and in the past I've shaved off bits of crank to try and get that to stop. That is a lot harder to do with a Shimano crank because they're two pieces that are kind of like basically glued together. So you don't want to be like putting a grinder to a Shimano crank. Now beyond that, the gearing's just not right. It's a compact road chain set, 50-34. I've got road bikes with gearing like that. That's not what this was ever meant to be. This is a cyclocross gravel bike, you know, easier gears. So I'm hoping that this FSA Gossamer with the chain rings that have been on this bike a bunch of times. Fingers crossed, everything goes on with all sorts of clearance. That worked out pretty good. Installed, there's still a tiny bit less space than I would like, but I just took it out to see if it would hit like it would before, if I put like as hard and as much power down as I kind of could for just being on the street. No contact between the crank and the chainstay. That is a win. The problem now is, and I'm remembering how much I despise working on these R8000 front derailleurs, is the derailleur adjustment is too high for the new smaller chainring. So I gotta bring that down and then go through all the garbage for getting that geared up. So now that this is lower and I have the gap that I want, obviously cable tension is way off, so I gotta deal with that. So that's tight. Let's see if it'll actually shift up, which it probably won't. Oh, that's not bad. Okay, and then trim. And I guess with this, all those two lines already line up. Okay, it's good to go. Three problems solved so far. And leaves us with our last one that I'm not going to be able to do anything with. Last and least, because I can totally live with not doing it, but it does bother me, is that there's a non-clutch, like a non-shadow Ultegra 11-speed derailleur on here. And you forget how annoying chain slap noise and like just that is. Not to mention it's not good for chainstay finish, and it can certainly affect shifting a little bit. I would like on this thing to replace it with a similar level GRX rear derailleur so that the weight and the performance and all that good stuff is similar, but it's quiet. And I want to keep the double on this. There's so many single ring bikes out there now that's something that you'd ride off-road, gravel, having a double just seems kind of a cool way to go. So someday, because this bike's already Ultegra equipped, I'll replace it with a like kind GRX shadow equipped livery. For now, I'll just have to deal with the noise. Oh, also the rear tire, it's getting close to the end of its life. So the 45s on this thing, they're cool. I rode them lots. Of course, the front one has the cut in the sidewall. I think the next set of tires that will go on this, not tan wall and possibly smaller. I don't think I'll go with 45s again. I definitely don't ever want to make decisions just based on a scale ever again, because I know that short stem, these cranks that don't hit the chainstay, are going to be a far superior and more fun way of riding this bike than saving a few grams. Okay, I'm excited. It doesn't look too bad with that stem. We've been doing a bunch of mountain bike content lately. I think that fits. That's fine.